Your fridge broke, and now you have to buy a new one. For the same price, you can either have this or this. Okay, the second one's actually not available in the market anymore, but there was a time when all of this was actually going to be possible. But instead, we're stuck in the monotony of all of this, which really sucks. Had we done it Walt Disney's way, we could have been stuck with a lot less uggo. In a video about design and quality of home appliances, I bet you didn't think that we were going to start with Disney, of all places, but I swear to you, stick with me and I'll bring you back to aesthetic kitchenware. Splashy headlines like this one have us all believing that Walt Disney, the real dude, was a bit of a science fiction freak, and we'd actually be right about that, but not exactly in the freeze your corpse to try to reanimate it later kind of way. See, Walt Disney was a visionary and an optimist, amongst other things. He really bought into the American dream, which makes sense because he was living in a time where a single income could buy you a house in the burbs, a car or two, and fund your middle-class vacation-taking lifestyle for a family of 4 or 5. But I digress. Because Walt achieved the gold medal level American dream for himself, and because he was a creative guy and forward-thinking, he was a futurist. Now, what do I mean by futurist? I mean that later on in Disney's life, he became almost laser focused on what the high-tech future of our nation would look like.
Another amusement theme park in Florida, similar to the one in California.
The experimental prototype community of tomorrow, or Epcot as we know it today, was not originally designed to be a part of the Disney World theme park. In the late 1960s, Walt Disney intended for Epcot to be a planned community/city, and actually a meticulously planned city. A self-sufficient city that could be the blueprint for the American future in more ways than one. Disney wanted a utopia, a place where corporate interests and citizens' interests alike would be met and bolstered by each other. Companies like General Electric and RCA could sponsor the place by providing corporate and blue-collar jobs, and in exchange, they could use Epcot's smart homes to show off their most cutting-edge technology. Tourists would use the same monorail system that Epcot citizens would, which would efficiently move tourists and residents alike through the city center and then radially out to the cul-de-sac neighborhoods where community gardens, urban planning, and consumeristic utopia would be showcased.
A dishwasher, of course, but this one unlike any other. Washing is by ultrasonic wave. What's happening here? In an ordinary house, we'd be talking about the refrigerator and freezer. But in this house of the future, we call them cold zones.
See, Walt saw Epcot not only as a city upon a hill, but also as a beacon of hope, a land of promise where public transit, communal spaces, and productivity reigned supreme. He also saw Epcot as an opportunity for corporations to design and showcase new technologies that could help make life a little bit less frictionful. Side note, if you're interested in this, I found a video on Defunctland's channel that I'll link, and it gets into all of the politics and predictable issues that Epcot would have had. I recommend that you go watch it. It has way more information than this does. So what kind of gadgets would Epcot be showcasing? Well, you live in the context of all in which you live and all that came before you. So we have to talk about how Disney wasn't the only dude dreaming up a smoother future through weirdo design. About 20 years before Disney thought of Epcot, and notably towards the end of World War II, Libbey Owens Ford Glass Company designed the Kitchen of the Future. It was an experimental kitchen that showcased the company's most cutting-edge technology. It was a kitchen with a harmonious layout that was visually pleasing. It was a kitchen that was built to serve the needs of the user, putting the user experience first and foremost. A decade later, in 1956, and for a couple of years after that, a fully automated kitchen created by Whirlpool and RCA toured the country.
Welcome to the RCA Whirlpool Miracle Kitchen. In this kitchen, you can bake a cake in 3 minutes. And in this kitchen, the dishes are scraped, washed, and dried electronically. They even put themselves away. Even the floor is cleaned electronically. So welcome to this wonderful new world of push-button cooking, cleaning, and homemaking. Now here we have an inventory panel of beverages, fruits, vegetables, meat, fish, and so forth. You merely make your selection with a touch of the finger. For example, right now, I think I'd like a can of frozen orange juice. Now you will notice that a wave of the hand lowers a special bottle cooling refrigerator. And again you will notice that a mere wave of the hand elevates this drawer, thus eliminating any back-breaking efforts. You merely push a button on the control panel. The cart will then return to its place in the wall and exchange your everyday dishes for a rack containing your very best ones.
If you feel like the focus on developing good design, like design that's both aesthetically pleasing and also just good user experience, is decreasing, you're not crazy. The middle of the century was the heyday of consumerism, which I'll critique a little bit later in this video. And companies were competing against each other to come up with the best product that users would most want to use. Consumers had a lot of buying power too in those days compared to now. This translated to more power in the hands of the consumer, which in my opinion is part of why privileged boomers romanticize the mid-century, but that's a topic for another day. So good design was king, and the companies had to compete for their share in the consumer market. Goods had to work well, and they had to be aesthetically pleasing. So how do we go from this to this? How did we get here? Stainless steel as a protracted metaphor. Stainless steel, cheap, easy to sterilize, and as of today, only 111 years old. The food processing industry was an early adopter, but by the 1960s, hospitals, industrial kitchens, and professional kitchens, and even some home kitchens, had made the move over to the cold antiseptic stuff. And that's a smart move, because the adoption of stainless steel has meant fewer bad health outcomes in hospitals and also less food adulteration, which is great for us. There's no need to vilify the material, and this is not meant to be a smear campaign against the material stainless steel, but it's not the coolest material ever invented, and I want to talk about how and why it's spread so far. It's really tempting for me to want to use Ronald Reagan as my stand-in for all evil. Don't worry about him, he's fine. He deserves my ire. We'll talk about him a different time. But we'll just use his term in office as a jumping off point here. So, the 1980s, a time for big business, conservatism, trickle-down economics, schmo-schmain, and fast cars. Enter the DeLorean. It debuts in 1981, and it's the first mass-produced car to be made out of stainless steel.
The sleek stainless steel DeLorean.
The thing is marketed to top business boys, and the PR really popped off with this one. Glad I wasn't around for this. I can't help but see the parallels between the DeLorean and the Cybertruck, like both in the impracticality and faultiness of their design, but also in the targeting of both of their marketing. Also, doesn't the Cybertruck visually reference the DeLorean? But I digress. Commercial skyscrapers of the 1980s had a hand in building this business boy aesthetic too. For example, the Lloyd's building turned heads and definitely contributed to this new sleek aesthetic, though it was by no means the first building constructed from stainless steel, actually not by a long shot. Okay, so stainless steel in the 80s and 90s was business boy chic. We know this, but soon the materials association with professionalism and sleekness unfortunately entered the household. By the 90s and early 2000s, the stainless steel refrigerator was the refrigerator. The main fridge on the market. The aspirational fridge. The original clean girl aesthetic fridge. The fridge that you would swap out your fully functional fridge for. Yeah. By 2010, this cheap, cold, lifeless material found security and staying power in a new aesthetic. It was easily absorbed into the interior design style we call industrial chic, a lifeless and joyless aesthetic that I'll rag on any day. This is my opinion. Now, I totally get why stainless steel is a good material to use in the kitchen. I really do. It is useful, it's easy to clean. For all the reasons that I said it worked in a medical or industrial setting, it also works in a home kitchen. But it isn't the only material that works in a home kitchen. And I just find that it's so cold and dreary. Remember when I said I didn't have a personal vendetta against stainless steel? I think the reason why stainless steel gets under my skin is because of the ubiquity of it. And this is true with other things. It's everywhere and it's so standard that it feels like it makes me feel cold inside. It's hard to describe. Basically, the conformity of it all is very creepy. All of this to say, I can't help but feel that today, cold, cheap, and efficient is king, replacing a time where good design was king. I am not advocating for a return to the consumerism of the mid-century, and I want to make it really clear that I am not idolizing the time period that gave us so many consumeristic choices. In fact, the heightened consumerism of the 50s and 60s plays a large part into why we're in such a mess today. Basically, today we live with an economy still driven by consumerism, and we have all the repercussions of that. But now we don't even have good mass market products, and that double sucks. I do like the fact though that both aesthetically and also from a user standpoint, the goods were actually, well, good. Using sturdier materials, designing based off of user experience, and having a slower design to market timeline, those parts of the process were nice. Now, does the normalization of corporate greed play into why we get such flimsy and icky products these days? Yeah, probably. These days, the minimum viable product is often the only thing that is available like in big box stores. So finding quality goods both in home appliances and beyond, like think fashion, furniture, vehicles, etc., gets harder and harder, especially at big box stores. But you can technically find quality items. Shopping local, slow, and secondhand. But these options aren't always doable since they take time, money, or both. So finding quality goods just isn't as accessible as it once was. But I don't say this to discourage you, like there is good stuff to be found, it just takes a lot more legwork these days. And one last thing, if you have a stainless steel fridge, so what? Literally, so what? It is just a thing that keeps your cold food cold. Like, it's literally just a thing.
He is literally just a guy.
Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I know that this was both a long one and it also ended on a bit of a dark note. But I hope you have a great week and I'll see you next time. Bye. Whew. Blah, 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 blog. This is so unhinged. The words are in front of me, so I should be able to read it.